welcome back. Okay, let's see. We'll start with this. A semester-ending update for the school club. We used a book display to create a huge mountain and placed the tables all around it, and on top placed a gargantuan gold dragon miniature covered in a blood-red cloth. As the students came in and awed at the spectacle, the student GM instructed them to take their seats together with their groups. We had the 4 groups of players act as units, a la regular wargaming, so they thought they had a chance of using an appropriate level stat block against this foe. They were wrong. You see, they all stood in the great worm's lair, which gave him further tremendous advantage. Every player around the table got a turn in, and as our time was close to expiring, the great dragon rose up and fire-breathed us all into oblivion. Until we come back next semester and reveal for each campaign, it was more or less a dream sequence. Each group has its own unique situation of how they came to this dreadful vision of their demise. It is this trope of tropes, but I think these young people, high school age, will get a good eye roll out of it. It also lays the groundwork for the groups to eventually meet when we move on together. When we move on from beginner starter, scripted adventures and schedules mix the rosters up. Always appreciate the inspiration and encouragement here. Take care. Yeah, the old Dallas, it was all a dream. I like something that my friend Jim Wampler uses, and when he has an unexpected TPK, and once the shock initially wears off, he'll something like, all right, and on an alternate planet in an alternate universe, or something of that neighborhood, or on planet Earth 12222-B, and he picks it right up from just before the TPK, and it didn't happen. Either way, yeah, let him mull it over all summer. And if you're lucky, some of them will get together during the summer at odd times and compare notes on this whole thing. And perhaps you'll get a real burning interest going. Okay, here's a good point on alignment. Adhering to alignment helped with resurrections and healing in my campaigns. If you went against your alignment type, your character stood a good chance of being rejected for resurrections and a sure trip to the 9 hells. Okay, and in a world where resurrections are possible, and they've never figured in any of my campaigns, but that's my campaigns. That's all. Certainly, when you're trying to get healed and high-level clerical skills applied, it helps to have your alignment, all your alignment papers in order. I've heard of a campaign where they have something similar to the old Babylonian myth about sticking your hand into the stone lion when you're testifying, and if you're not right, the stone lion will close on your hand and crush. They have a sniffer test of some sort, and so if they come around to, oh, help me, I need help, and they pass the sniffer test, then that's fine, and if they don't, well, I'm sorry. It's especially helpful in removing in seeking to remove curses. I don't believe curses are used often enough. And I'm not talking about, you can no longer eat black olives or something silly like that. I'm talking about serious curses that are going to affect their lives, and they've got to go do something to have this curse lifted. Then they're really helpful. The alignment thing really helps to be in good with whoever you're trying to get to help you. I'm designing a new campaign world and I've hit a block. How do you handle hamlets, villages, and cities? I'm stuck between having roads connecting all the settlements and then being a day of travel apart like that of the Roman Empire, or having infrequent city-states that are all self-sufficient. What is your opinion on which style makes a better background? Well, I think the style that you ought to adopt is the one that fits the historicity part of your background. I prefer Dark Ages type setting where there are little hamlets scattered about here and there, if you know how to find them, or if you know which of the winding little roads leads to it. And when you have that type of landscape, then finding locals that give you reliable tips, it can become a fun side effort, if you will. I don't like. I'm not gonna design a city. Not when there's so many good ones out there that I could pick up and adapt for myself. Why do I want to go through laying out all the neighborhoods and the winding, crooked streets and the alleys and all that when I can buy one? Just me. Even when I couldn't buy one, I didn't want to do one. Which is why when the City State of the Invincible Overlord came out, it was such an amazing revelation and saved us all having to do it. Now, having said that, no cities. Villages, maybe. It depends on the needs of the story. I'm not restricted to a world, a given world, except as I set my stories in Makanda, but I can set them anywhere I want. I like hamlets, little 12 buildings around the crossroads and 16 outlying farms type of thing. I like that. It fits my image of history of the Dark Ages. When most people didn't go 4 or 5 miles beyond the village they grew up, and that only to a fair. That kind of eliminates a lot of extraneous people. I don't have to deal with a lot of civilians, in other words. That's my personal preference. If I need a village or a hamlet even being even better because it requires less, I just make it up on the spot and center it around either the terrain that it's located in or the trades of the local neighborhood, whatever. As to connecting them, no. If you were to map them out on a larger scale map, maybe Village A has a path, a trail, a footpath, or even a wagon road to Village B, which in turn has a wagon trail to D, which has one to C. You get my drift. You can't necessarily get there from here. To get there, you'll have to get to your ultimate there, you'll have to go to here, and you'll have to go to here, and then you get to there. I like that. Um, it makes for more possibilities of things happening outdoors. If you just have big, well traveled highways, well, you have far less chance of bandits and encounters of other types. Personal preference. Right now, I'm working on a unique metropolitan area that is actually run by a bunch of different factions under treaty, and I'm having fun with it. But it's relatively small. Oh, in regard to first-person shooters segment, yeah, playing modded Doom in the early 90s counts. I had the Barney mod too. I also remember one where it made it at Christmas so all the demons had Santa hats. You might have missed out on the game Hair Trick around that same time. It was a Doom, except you played as a wizard in a fantasy world. Well, yeah, I did miss out. I believe I only had Doom because my son had a copy of it. And I can honestly say it was the only first-person shooter that I played for a long, long time. First-person shooters aren't my thing. I like turn-based strategy. That's my thing. Okay, redo time. A few seconds. Was in the movie Galaxy Quest. Bang! How could I forget that? Great movie. Not sure if one of the Star Trek iterations had a short loan like this one. I don't know either, but you're right. It wasn't Galaxy Quest. Yeah. Well, again, all right. It's all fantasy. It's all made up. Doing your campaign, whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. All right. Where I can understand that a plot line and backstories can add flavor to a game. Whatever happened to plopping characters down in front of a dungeon and having them go in for the treasure, gold, items, experience, possible glory, and fun? They get to find out about each other and in the environment together. The mystique of it all. Getting to the point instead of all the blah, 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 here's my world from the DM. I see your point. However, what you're describing is much more like a convention adventure. A lot of people want a thread of continuity other than you were all just woke up and found yourself here. That makes a lot of players uneven, anxious. Now, when you go to a tournament and sign up, you kind of expect that. When you play in my Wheel of Blame game, I give a really brief a really brief explanation of the circumstances leading up to this moment. As something that goes to the effect of, it really doesn't matter. Either you've decided to sign up for this so you can prove your prowess, or you really pissed somebody off who made you go through this. You're all here now. That's it. That's the backstory. Off we go to confound or be confounded by the Wheel of Blame. If you're going to be in a campaign, backstories become... I think, personally, if you're going to begin a campaign, backstory should be very, very sketchy. Now, if you're going to begin a world, well, then you got to lay out everything as if you're going to do it for somebody else. I understand your point of yada, 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 here's all the backstory, yada, 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 yada. Well, there's also a joke that if you bring a big backstory to the table, the guy's bound to die, and you will have wasted all the time. And there are some DMs that will definitely hold it against you if you have an overly developed backstory. And I believe Jolly has pointed that out in a couple of different ways at a couple of different times in the nights. As an aside, I was very tickled and pleased to know in issue number 304, Knights of the Dinner Table, I am one of 4 people. Jim Lompler is one of them, and I don't remember the other 2 names, that have been made honorary Knights of the Dinner Table. Thank you, Jolly, for the distinction. Okay, so if you create a character with a real long, elaborate backstory, myself included, there's a lot of DMs that would kill you just to teach you, don't do that. Don't come with some sob story, backstory about how you found yourselves on the life of the adventurer's road, etc., etc. crap. Your story should be drawn from your feats, your actions, your adventures. Really, the idea of a backstory back in 1974 and 1975 was ludicrous. Beyond that, okay, you were a farmer, but your father's a farmer, and you don't really want to be a farmer, and so you have this rusty scythe that you refashioned into some kind of pole weapon, and you've gone up to seek your fortune. And that was the backstories we used at the very beginning of the game. In the very beginning, when the game was new. Backstories. I favor just dropping you down. However, what the DM favors and what the players, if the players just have to have, if they're method actors, and they have to have motivation and all that, well, you're going to have to make the call on your group. You know your group. I have nothing whatsoever against dropping them in. However, I do, again, what you're describing is a con game where you don't know any of the other players that signed up and got into the same game with you, and finding them and discovering each other and yada yada yada, that's great in a con. Except you don't have time for that. Again, it's all down to personal taste. Personally, if somebody was introducing a new character and went off on a 3.5-minute spiel about his backstory, I'd want to see the little beggar get smashed under a giant boulder. But that's just me. Okay, now this was presented as a tongue-in-cheek. Regardless of player character, 90% of all players are chaotic neutral. And then there were some responses to this. Ah, chaotic neutral, the only alignment more evil than chaotic evil. We'll address each of these in turn. Someone replied, well, that isn't actually a fact. To which the original poster responded, okay, you got me. A humorous exaggeration for the sake of its joke, so it's only like 85%. Okay. Let's address that for a minute. Number one, the definition of the alignments would have to be necessarily be in the DM's head, and they would have to be his interpretations of alignments. So the DM's already kind of sitting there like the Pope, saying yay and nay are what's getting done. The players can best be described as a bunch of wildly narcissistic individuals that are chaotic neutral because everything is me, 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 I, me, I. And I guess that's to be understood to a point, but I recall in the early days of running tournaments at TSR that we gave awards for heroic deaths, self-sacrifice and stuff. And there was more of an incentive because everybody wasn't married to their character. There was more of an incentive to go, yeah, okay, what the hell, I'll go for a glorious death. I'll stay back and let the party escape. And they'll tell tales about me around the tavern fireplaces for decades to come. Are chaotic neutrals worse than chaotic evil? Yeah, because neutrals exhibit characteristics of both lawful and chaotic. And so in that they're much more unpredictable, much more self-centered, much more self-serving, yeah, they're nastier, I think. I think that's a fair assessment. And, whether it's 85 or 90%, I do believe that anybody that's ever played the game for more than just a little while has probably been that at one time or another with one character or another. Gary and I used to argue about which alignment would be the hardest to play and stay true to, and which would be the easiest. And we reached a consensus that the easiest would be neutral, because by definition, neutral is looking after your own self, and neutral in your own interest, and neutral would be that times 2. So always looking out for yourself. However, that would make for a lot of deserved friction amongst other members of the party who perhaps didn't see things your way. All right. Oh, a quick reminder, or a quick follow-up. Yes, the individual who tipped me to Age of Wonders 4, thank you. It's gorgeous. I've been drooling. I have permanent drool marks down my beard here. And finally today, University of Cincinnati finally paid me for my guest lecture stint class that I did down there. So it's found money. I can justify blowing some of it on Age of Wonders 4. So I'll probably lose myself down that rabbit hole this weekend. Thanks in advance, or curse you in advance. We'll see how that goes. You know, the game looks much more like, and I can only go by what it looks, but I always felt that while they said it was a unit of whatever creatures and that the heroes were leading armies, it looks like it's now more heroes leading a band of adventurers. And it always felt more like that, and that's why I liked it, and that's the way I played it. So I'm going to check it out. I'll let you know next week. And now the elephant that's been in the room for a week or 10 days now. Well, a couple of weeks. And it's been in the news. And it's been in the papers and the magazines. And that's AI writing and AI art. I'll address the writing first. If I was still teaching, that would be my worst nightmare. Trying to figure out whether this student actually wrote this piece that they just turned in, or do they have an AI write it for them? When I was teaching, a big problem at the time was selling term papers. And they developed software that could find plagiarism. And they had taken this developers had given them access to vast stores of books and information, and they would run and look for suspected plagiarism by, they had many different algorithms they used to find it. And then there were some laws passed, and that once lucrative side gig dried up. But it took other AI to find the plagiarism that was going on. So now we have a new AI who can, I guess, I admit I'm not terribly familiar because I haven't done it hands-on. I've only heard what it can do. If I was a teacher and all of a sudden a student that I knew was just skating through by the seat of their pants, turned in a rather comprehensive and surprising paper out of nowhere, that would certainly set off alarm bells. I'd have to wonder if a student who had been failing all of a sudden turned in a piece like that. I'd be more suspicious, because I like to think that good teachers can watch over the course of a couple of weeks and get a good idea of who's doing what in reference to the subject you're teaching. So anyway, that would bother me to know that capability is out there. And I don't know how it was trained. I don't know if it was fed all the books in the Library of Congress. I don't know. I do know that if that's something of that nature happened, then it read a whole bunch of copyrighted material. However, I can find no reason to say that shouldn't be done. It's no different than asking Google to find you everything about some mysterious plant disease. It's up to you to cite your sources if you're writing up a paper to present to somebody else. It's your responsibility as the author to cite your sources. I don't believe any of that source citing happens in AI writing. And that bothers me. I want to know, if I'm going to buy an adventure, I want to know that no matter how banal, sick, or twisted, perverted, or strange it is, it came out of a human brain. Not the composite of 93 million human brains worth of writing, etc. I'd like to think that the spark of imagination is not something you can create with an AI. Now, the AI art, I feel, is much more problematic. Again, it's going to be very hard to detect. But in this case, from what I have learned of how these programs were trained, educated, whatever, they scan millions of drawings, sketches, pieces of art, we'll say, most of which we can presume are copyrighted. And then they're going to use the influence of that to give you a brand new picture. That I have a problem with, particularly if they get good at it. If you can sit down with it and tell it you want a big beefy warrior with a furry loincloth and hairy sandals, wielding a monstrous axe while holding a severed head and a bag of gold in his offhand, staring down a wolf in the style of Frank Frazetta, and it can do it, that's bad. Frazetta's estate has been cheated. That's simply the way I feel now. I just know that I'll be dead long before all the lawsuits are settled about copyrights and intellectual properties and all that AI is going to present. Now, I bring this up because my good friend Jim Wampler has very, very strong feelings about this topic, and he put together an icon, logo, if you will, or whatever, that says that that there are no AI created contents in this product. It's not to single anybody out. It's not to segregate anybody. It's to put on there, if it's the case, so that if you feel that you don't want to unwillingly support AI created content, you can do that by looking for this. He put it on an open license thingy, so anybody can use it. It means what it says. It doesn't have any of that AI-generated material. I have a problem with AI art on many, many fronts. The one primary one being that the program scanned millions of pieces of other people's work to amalgamate and synthesize and create something. It's not the same as you or me sitting down, reading everything we can about the Mongols, and then writing a graduate level paper on the Mongol system of roads and couriers. Because we'd have to do a lot of work to be able to assimilate that into something coherent. I'd hate to think that publishers are going to embrace this, particularly the AI art, because it doesn't cost anything. Beyond the initial cost of the software itself. So if I was running a publication that had, say I was doing a quarterly something or other, and it has 65 pieces of art in each one, of varying, teeny or big, or including the cover. And my art budget was 28% of my total costs, because I had to pay artists, and now I can go get a program and create it all for nothing and not pay anybody and pocket that 28%. Is it wrong to make more profit? No. Is it wrong to make more profit on the backs of others? Yes. If those other backs are not sharing in the profits and only sharing in the burden. So somewhere at the end of this, you'll find this link to this proclamation, this sticker that says, "No AI art, no AI writing in this product." I don't like the idea of robots writing. Don't like that at all. That capability is so subject to abuse and misuse. And I don't like AI art because the people whose art was assimilated to produce that whatever it spit out were not compensated. I mean, I know what I remember with Dragon and with Little Wars and Gygax and with adventure gaming. The art budgets were always a substantial portion of the production costs. And if all of a sudden they went to nothing, but all of a sudden all those artists don't have an income, some of whom are feeding their kids with that income, some of whom are just budding young artists that are encouraged to become better and eventually, turn into sterling artists. I don't like it. I won't use AI-generated art in anything I do. Now, let's go back to AI-generated writing again. There's no question that there's a lot of dreck put out every year by small publishers or independents, a lot of which is terribly badly written. I don't know yet, and I really don't have any desire to learn, whether or not these programs will make you a better writer. If you can put your dribble in there and tell it how to spruce it up, it'll make it better. If it does, well, if people that can barely write now all of a sudden start turning in or publishing stuff that you would suspect has a ghostwriter involved and yet doesn't, well, the good old ghostwriter becomes AI. And that goes back to the same class of fears I had as a teacher, trying to distinguish the real from the computer generated. That's everything on my list. So, let's see what's coming up. Well, I'm sure there's regional cons going on that I'm not aware of. And nothing big's coming up for a little while. So, do locals. Play with your friends. Keep your groups going. Save your money so you can go to cons and see new things. Oh, I'll give you an update. Finally. Hallelujah. We finally got our paper released out of customs. Finally, after all these weeks. Because there was something suspicious or something illegal or something contraband in a giant-ass container the size of a semi-truck. If one thing in there is slightly amiss, everything gets... And I guess lawyers had to be involved. And finally, so maybe in a couple of weeks, D20 delving will actually start. The Braille dice look great. They look great. So anyway, that's where we are with that. Memorial Day is coming up. So if you have family members who gave it all, this is your weekend. Da-da-da Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree,
High as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.